as an agile product development cycle, if that makes more sense. That, okay, you're figuring out different versions. Let's see which one sticks, which one is the most valuable. So going through those iterations right now.
Right. Okay. Okay. Fun
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Hi, Homagni.
Hey, hello Aditi. Nice to see you again.
সবাই বাঙালি এখানে।
সবাই বাঙালি একদম।
টপমেট বট ছাড়া সবাই বাঙালি।
বাঙালি একটা আলাদা গ্রুপ করা দরকার।
করব। আসি আমরা সবাই একসঙ্গে করব তারপরে। But if you are looking for another Bengali to talk to who's gotten his EB1, Bikiran Guha is very good. But he's more on the PhD track, so it might not be applicable to y'all. Yeah, so he's a Bengali. Komal Kalpana Mondol is a Bengali who is
Ogniboda?
EP1. Ogniboda is one. Ogniboda is a great mentor. Like everybody's.
Are they from IT, or because PhD and IT? Then I mean, like, see, like obviously there is a lot of help because, like, for example, like, you know, like, no, I think there is an overlap, but I think some parts there is, but some part there isn't.
Yeah, there is a disconnect for sure, right? Like the things that work for you know, PhDs, they don't work for other people, and so that work for IT doesn't work for biochem. But that's where you need to put your creative hat on and not look at this as a formulaic situation. When I went up for my EB1, I was from the social sciences, even though I had a PhD, but all of my friends were from the life sciences. But I learned strategies from them that I then replicated in my field. You have to be more creative. This is not going to be, this is the syllabus. This is what you need to do for IIT entrance examination. This is, everybody is doing this. I will also do this. That mindset needs to change. Sunku, what's up?
Hey Aditi, good to see you here. How are you?
I'm great, man.
Yeah, so I'm just taking in your wisdom as well. So
my wisdom, oh my gosh, I need
No,
to call
definitely.
I need to call my mom on this call. I'm like, you know, listen, you
sure.
think I'm just blabbering.
No, you're doing good. You're doing great. Yeah,
Think
you're helping a lot.
Wisdom. Thank you. Oh. Hi,
Yeah, good to see you.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the event. And hi, Aditi, again.
Good to
Yeah,
see
met
you.
before.
Yeah. Devendra Atharva, good to see you. We'll give another like 5-7 minutes for people to join, and Sunku, we can get started at like 12:04. Yeah.
Yeah, that works.
I'm gonna make you the co-host.
Yeah.
God forbid if something happens, you have the reins.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, I think while we are waiting, I can hear an echo, but okay, someone muted. Thank you. No, I was just saying, if folks want to share their background, like, or
Oh yeah.
in the meanwhile, yeah.
Put it in the chat. Like if people want to put their what is your job? Yeah, put it in the chat. Let's get to know each other. What is EPM, Vijay?
Engineering Program Manager. I will type it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Amazing. Engineering Program Manager. I love how all these titles are coming together.
Just about to say, but to learn about these titles.
Program Manager. 3 things together.
Yes.
I am waiting for the day when somebody is going to be, you know how you have social media managers, etc. There's going to be a day when people are like, this is the AI manager in the team.
Hey, there's this new software now, AI software engineer. That's the name of the software. Right?
I
Yeah.
am collapsing. There'll be a TikTok manager. There'll be a everything needs to be managed right now.
I think next is prompt managing, like engineering or prompt manager. I think that's booming. That's I'm guessing.
What is prompt manager?
That is, how do you design or give a prompt to the ChatGPT?
I love how civilization is progressing.
Yes.
I love the 5-star ad like that's running around.
What is
Do
it?
nothing, do nothing ad. AI
The-
will do everything for you.
Yeah,
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 eat 5-star, do nothing.
Before you know it, all like EB1 applications are also going to like bots.
Exactly.
Ay, ay. Senior data scientist, advanced services engineer, engineering program manager. So many engineering. Oh, Vijay, I was like, there
Expanded. I expanded. Yeah.
why did people stop? What do you do?
Infra specialist.
Infosec.
I feel like, at some point the OCI's officer is going to look at these titles and like, wow, like title itself says a lot. Like maybe I should approve.
Just give it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
was talking to some people and I was like, do you know who is going to read your petition? So let's look up, and I would encourage everybody to do this. Just go to LinkedIn and look up USCIS officer and look at what their background is. And you will understand who is reading your petition because it's important to know the audience. So if you are a EPM or an infrastructure specialist and a person who has a bachelor's in political science is reading it, then that could be a disconnect. So we want to make sure that they understand where we are coming from. Oh, PhDs, all right. Prakhar, PhD student. Mamta, recent graduate. Congratulations, Dr. Mamta.
Hey, thank you, Aditi. Thank you.
Wonderful. What did you get your PhD in?
Yeah, I did my PhD from India, from one of the reputed institutes, and it's in computer science and AI with the domain of weather application.
Very cool.
I'll just send you a link in, request in
Did you?
so that you can see my work. Yeah.
So I
You can
will
just
also.
type my name in Google, so you'll get my thesis and everything.
Oh, perfect. Sunku,
Nice.
you can also include your LinkedIn if people want to get in touch. Happy to.
Oh, sure. I'll just share it in a while. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Atharva, joining aerospace PhD program. Ooh, is your goal to work for NASA? SpaceX. Okay. Elon fans. Wonderful. Robotics and remote sensing engineer. All smart people on this call. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Sunku, you
That's one thing. I'll start sharing my screen just so that we adjust the settings and everything. But one thing I've seen, most pursuants to EB1A or whatnot, right? EB1B, like really, really qualified in across the world, right? Like very few specialists in those domains, and like wow, like we're missing out. Countries are missing out so much talent, and we do so much.
Yeah. No, this is I love. That's why I love this, what I do, because you get to meet different people and like getting to know their background. It's like, damn, like you're doing great work, which is awesome. And Sunku, you're one of them. So I don't want to hold back on understanding EB1 through Sunku's lens. I met Sunku sometime last year, and what I really enjoyed talking to with Sunku is he didn't have an air about himself, right? Like he was not like, I am Einstein only just because I have received this award or something, like, this visa. And as you go through this journey, you will realize that it's not the mastery of it, but it's the relevance and the relatability of your mentor that makes a lot of difference. That this person needs to meet you halfway. You need to be able to feel comfortable enough to talk to them about your field without thinking that this person is coming to me in a condescending tone or like, I did it, you can't, that kind of a vibe is very demotivating. And Sunku is one such person who does it really well to create that air of comfort, to create that air of trust, so that you can make progress in your journey and not be enamored by Sunku, but walk away with a feeling that, okay, if Sunku can figure this out, so can I. And Sunku's credentials are he's a principal product manager currently, but correct me if I'm wrong, Sunku, but you got your EB1 when you were a senior product manager at Intel. And I have talked to paralegals at Intel, and Intel does have a program where they encourage people to apply for their EB1s, and they have a filtration process that even before you go to your lawyer, Intel should think that you're good enough. And Sunku crossed that barrier from Intel, crossed that barrier from lawyers, and crossed that barrier in USCIS. So you know he's got good things to say to you. So I'm going to keep it at that. Sunku, take it away. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge with us.
No, I appreciate the introduction, Aditi. Really, sometimes I'm humbled by everything that you do, and still, how much you're hoping to help to others. No, for sure. Like, I'll get going with the details. And thanks for inviting me here, so to share my perspective. So, folks, like essentially, I try and keep my content to the minimum. You might feel like I'm running fast, but feel free to ask questions, and I want to leave as much time as possible towards the end for the question. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I started putting together some articles to send out through a newsletter to share like whatever I've learned along the process, but I'm getting there. But in the meanwhile, if I want to ask specific questions later, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. So with that said, let's dig in some of the details. So like Aditi was saying, right, you don't need to be an Einstein. That's the number one thing, right? So EB1A especially is sometimes called like Einstein visa. But the reality is I'm not Einstein or anywhere close to some of the geniuses out there. I'm just a normal engineer, so to say, to who figured out like what I need to work on, and rather kept working on at this for a while, and I just got it. And so I'll go through my criteria, but then reality is, no matter where you are in life today in your career, you're starting out as a student or an experienced professional, so you can work towards this and get this done. So this has been my criteria. The reality is like it's best for your case. How you should structure your evidence against this criteria is best discussed with your attorney. But this is what I had worked on. Like there are a bunch of other things I've done after this as well, which I haven't included. But my domain has been like the cloud for 5G infrastructure and networking for cloud in this side of the world. But in terms of criteria, it's gotten some bunch of divisional awards at work and some couple of open source leadership awards. In terms of original contributions, bunch of patents, standards, book chapters, and whatnot. I've done over nearly 30 plus at the time of filing, 30 plus conferences across open source, IEEE, peer-reviewed conferences. I think overall in my career, like it crosses 40, 45. I traveled a lot. This is a side effect or a side benefit of that. Like I travel a lot of countries representing my work and some of the things I've done. And the luck, how is it that I started working towards in the open source domain? And I've leveraged a lot of industry connections. Was part of some of the things that were redefining or shaping some of the infrastructure that in the domain that I've been working in. So I was lucky enough to be involved. The other way to put it, the luck, right? So you work towards it. At times you create the luck yourself. So I had to move around. I had to choose projects in my work. I put in extra effort to make sure I go present myself. I go represent in certain situations, certain conferences, certain projects that help me towards this journey as well. So it's both ways. Not that someone just picked me out of the blue in my company and said, "Hey, you're the best person to do this. Go figure it out." Rather, me working backwards to see, okay, I need to have that external customer exposure. Now, what do I do? So I've done a bunch of roles across like tech lead, solutions architect, product management across my career. So my current role is into product management. And yeah, reviewer, done a bunch of reviews in the open source world, in the conferences. And at times it's just worked out through my network to say like, hey, I'm open to review. Is there anything I can do? So, hey, like here's the book or here's a conference. Can I invite you to be a TPC member or whatnot? Let's just that build that enough network so that I could get these opportunities. and publications, write-ups. Like I've done like tens of these articles and papers and publications. Like I haven't even put a number on this because there's quite a lot out there. So I guess the idea here is, like Aditi said, just work towards it. There is no shortcut. Just at the time when I was working on this, there was nothing of information that I could find. So I just kept at it for a while. So it's enough about me, but I rather want to spend time about how I can help you based on my journey, based on speaking to over 70, 80 people around, what they're working towards EB1A and how they're figuring out their career, their profile across time. Spoken to quite a few folks, and try to consolidate my observations across what I see, hear from different attorneys, what I see going on in the industry today, and understanding some of the RFEs or reading through some petitions that people have shared with me. So it's more from that aspect that I'm sharing here. Again, so this is my personal opinion, right? So this is not a legal advice. You do talk to your attorney for legal advice. And the idea here is that while you're preparing, whether you're starting out or whether you're figuring out in mid-career, whether you're close to filing a petition, having this knowledge of fundamentals, as to say, like math, there are certain fundamentals, addition, subtraction, you can do complex math. In the same way, if you understand the fundamentals, you can work towards, in your life, in your case, strengthening your evidence, or strengthening your petition with appropriate narrative. And that's the whole idea of me sharing what I've learned so far. So in terms of preparation, right? So let's dig into these things. Understand the criteria. What does it criteria mean? And working towards a domain expert. And this is something often people overlook. People think it's a checklist of things you need to do for EB1A. In reality, it can only get you to a certain point. And then understanding the power of narrative. So let's get going in these three things. So what I've done, of the most like 8 criteria that most STEM folks can work towards, I've written down few bullets for each of the criteria. And what does it mean? Like what is the perspective that you have to think through while you're working towards these criteria, or while you're presenting your evidence to your lawyer, and how to think about these things. And I'll quickly run through those. So first one is membership, right? So a lot of people come to me and ask like, hey, I applied IEEE, I applied BCS or whatever. Is this good enough? The reality is, so you have to understand the criteria, right? So criteria, what you need is like for you to be claiming yourself as a specific member title, member, fellow, senior, whatever it is, right? So it needs to have certain set of bylaws to say why, what kind of people can get elected, what is the process to get nominated or elected or assigned a particular title of a member, and why is it done in a particular way, right? So those bylaws is something, if you understand, that you can leverage and share with your lawyer as to how you've been elected, and that adds to the strength of that criteria. And your domain can be, for example, in cloud computing, but you are I don't know, like you are senior member or some senior title in a nonprofit that cleans up streets, or nonprofit that plants trees. No. So these are two different things. It's a good thing you're doing outside of your work, great, but does that apply to your domain, right? So that's one of the things that you have to understand. Any of the memberships that you go after, does it? And this is a common theme that I keep repeating in the next few minutes, is that whatever you do, how does it show or reflect your work in your domain? How do you differentiate yourself in your domain? And the tricky part about this is if there is a title for certain memberships, great. Like okay, there is a specific straightforward path to being a member, but there are non-traditional things that you can still count as member. For example, folks in product management, some of the folks are very well qualified. They advise startups. They're into venture capital evaluations. They're like nominated to be board of certain companies, or or from a technical standpoint, you're a technical advisor to certain committees. So these are things that you do outside of your work. You have to have certain level of experience or expertise to get nominated or get selected. There is no bylaws or clear definition of like you being called a member, but still you have to work with your attorney to see how does that help your case, and that's what matters with respect to what these non-traditional membership titles or roles mean. And in terms of the criteria, you can also substantiate through letters, not just like name in a website, but you can substantiate through letters. That's one. So, and then next was published material about you. So understand what is professional publication, major trade publication, or other major media mean, right? So the idea here is in terms of evidence, like if you look at policy matter, right? So who is writing about you? What's the name or title of the person? And why, as to why is something you narrate, but uh, how are they writing about you, and what is it that they wrote about you to show your expertise in that domain, right? So these are the things that you should be looking for. But if you understand like what these major media are, like YouTube is a major media, definitely. To that end, like if someone's interviewing you, a podcast that relates to your domain, again, like the importance of domain comes in here. These can also be, and I recently heard a lawyer talking about this, and they use something like this in the petition, and these are some things that you have to really clear about what does major media mean. And you can also look at to see how other organizations are featuring you, and see if you can reach out. Some of the times you do a lot of work, you help a lot of people, just that just don't expect much. But then in your career, you have to think through what is the nature of volunteer work you have done, and see how you can probably reach out to say like, hey, can you feature my profile? And just write an article about me. If you've written something for them, can you just put a web page about me, right? So all of these things, it doesn't take money, but then you can be creative enough to ask for these. The next one, evidence of prizes or awards. So here's the thing, I've seen people like, hey, I've heard of this award, like people can apply and get it, sure. But if you look at some of the RFEs, if you talk to lawyers, like one of the first questions is how does it help you recognize in your field of work? And that is more important than just say like we got whatever ABC award. And it's the award signifying your contributions to your domain, signifying something major accomplished, like is there a set of criteria that you cross through to get the award, right? Um, and a lot of times there are awards out there where there is nothing marketed about it or publicized about those awards. It's a matter of fact that there is something that organization or a subcommittee or a committee is working on, and it's a matter of fact that you reaching out to them and say like, hey, can I work towards this? Can I apply for this? And at least a couple of awards I got is someone else nominated me. Like, yeah, you're doing decent work here. Why don't we put your nomination in? Like whether you get it or not, it's a secondary thing, right? So you can leverage your network and your colleagues towards this and say like, hey, how can you work through this? And that is where your creativity lies in. Next one is leading in a critical role in distinguished organization. There are two parts to it. You having critical role and you being in a distinguished organization, and both are important for this criteria. It's not just one or other. So to that end, how do you think through this? Right? So the evidence, nature of evidence, when you work from end in mind. So everything I'm talking about, right? Think through how you can work with end in mind. So from evidence perspective, the nature of evidence are usually recommendation letters, some of the emails, the critical nature of your work, and that's been discussed in emails, or some of the documentation within a company that you can work with and share with your lawyer. So these are the kinds of documentation you can go for. Now, how can you narrate it, some of these things you would have done to a lawyer or in the recommendation letter? So a couple of pointers there. What if your role doesn't exist in an organization, and what would happen to an organization? If nothing changes, you can't really come up with anything. You should really question yourself about your role, less about EB1A, but more about your role to see like, am I really in a critical role for my career? and maybe I should change. It's time to change for your career, right? So to that end, when you start thinking through these things, one is career development, sure, but the other aspect is you get ideas to see like how your role relates to cross-functional dependencies in the organization, or how does it your work impact other organizations, other entities in the company and whatnot. It impact your customers, vendors, partners. So these are the things you can think through to come up with writing your own impact, and that can be conveyed through the letters that you'd work with. So it's important you understand the footprint of your role. And then there is an aspect of distinguished organization, and that is something you have to work with your attorney to say, like, what is distinguished, what is the special about the part being called as distinguished, what is importance to the country or the domain or whatnot, right? So all these factors come in around representing your organization. If you're in a big company, multinational company, it's maybe relatively easier. If you're in a relatively like a small organization or startup, this is something to kind of work with to attorney to figure out and narrate. High salary. Again, people ask me, hey, I got a promotion. Can I apply for an EB1A now? Well, it's less of whether you, by the way, congrats if you get a promotion, great, right? But it's less of those aspects and more of, what is your kind of complete remuneration or a paycheck as compared to your location you're in and for the title that you're working with. So you have to look at overall kind of compensation. There are websites out there, ownitonline.org, Bureau of Labor Statistics. There are a bunch of websites where you can look at what percentile you fall under. And anything about 90 percentile is incredible, right? But at times you can also get employer letters to say that like you're one of the few in this domain who are getting highly compensated. Those can work for you as well. It's a simple, relatively straightforward, but you need to understand what this means, right? And recently, there's been guidance by OCS that even your stock and RSUs as a part of total compensation, those can be leveraged as well. So have that in mind. Next one is evidence that you've been asked to judge. So the word says like you need to be asked to judge, but the reality is no one comes to you looking and say like, hey, you're like one among the incredible person in the world. Like, can I ask you to judge? Right? So that really happens unless like you're one of the few who's who in a particular industry. Maybe you are, which is great if it happens. But then in reality, a lot of times you go out and ask to volunteer to be a review. And people ask like, where do I go? What kind of conferences can I share? And that is where you need to have an understanding of your work and your domain to see what are the activities that are going on out there in the world. Are there IEEE conferences? Are there nonprofits that are running some conferences or panels? And it comes down to your creativity in searching for those, and then actually doing that labor work where nominal work, if you want to call it that, where it's just taking having a write-up of an email, reaching out to multiple people and say like, can I help you in volunteering to be a reviewer? Here's my domain expertise, right? A lot of times the best way to do is like every conference has like a certain review panel, review technical program committee kind of thing. Reach out to those folks and ask. You can ask like nicely and not just spam them. You can ask nicely like you want to volunteer. So now there's a question of how many is good enough. And that's a common thing most people have. And even I had the same question. Here's where you need to understand the quantity versus quality. Even if you have a handful of reviews, events or conferences or things that you have done that pertain to your domain, differentiates you being a judge in your domain in terms of quality with a high impact events or entities. That's a strong evidence as compared to you can go after chasing like 20, 25 things and broadly across different domains. So there is no magic number if you're looking for a number, but then you have to have that idea like what is the impact you've done or you want to create, and is that impact in terms of quality coming across based on the number of things you have done. Try and wrap up soon here so that I can leave time for Q&A. Original contributions, this is another nebulous one. Like, okay, what is original? What is contributions? I wrote an email. Is that a contribution? So it's a tricky one for sure. And this is where you need to understand your domain well enough to say that, okay, these are something significant. I can differentiate myself in my domain, and I can put that in writing. I can work with my attorney to build a write-up or a narrative there. And again, here again, like you might have done something simple, but then your narrative comes a big part of this criteria in the original contributions area. So there's straightforward, obvious evidences here, like patents, publications, articles. If you've done YouTube videos, something like your domain significant in your domain that people see and view in your domain, like some major conferences in your domain. All of these things are like strong, straightforward evidences. However, there might be some work where only your customers might know, your partners might know, your company might know. And for that to kind of come through, you can leverage recommendation letters by experts in your domain. And the narrative you would write in those recommendation letters is what you need to kind of work through to say, to differentiate yourself from everybody else. Give an example. AI is like everywhere. And people do a couple of things in AI and say you're AI expert. AI expert what in what, right? So AI is a big field, like AI in a specific thing that you're working on. And if you're someone in the 5G side, AI in 5G. If you're someone in healthcare, AI in healthcare. So be very specific, clear about your domain. And then evidence of authorship of scholarly articles. You need to spend time understanding what these major media, trade publication, professional publications are. And then the idea here is like that each of them have different bar, and some are like relatively easier and or less time consuming than other. And it's a matter of you creatively searching for it, reaching out to the editors and say, hey, can I contribute? Can I volunteer? Can you take my work? Right. So assuming your work is good enough. And even if you get rejections, you can always work towards being better and reaching out to those folks and say, hey, can I have my work published in your reaching out to editors or reviewers or whatnot, right, in their publications or in their podcasts, in their channels per se. So this is the next one, right? So how do you identify a domain? Right. So this is something most people have trouble in. Like, oh man, I'm starting out. I'm somewhere in the middle of my career. How can you claim what is my domain? And a lot around your EB1A petition or your narrative and your evidences revolve around this thing. So it's important you take time to refine what your domain is. It's okay if you change over time based on your evidence, but you can piggyback in your career expertise, your strengths to identifying your domain. And when you sit down and think through your work and your evidences, right? Ask yourself, what does my work point to? What stands out in my portfolio? And do I have enough understanding of what's going on in the world, in my domain or surrounding my domain, the trends, so that I can leverage the trends? So, for example, White House would publish the priorities or the STEM fields that they want to invest in the country, like semiconductor or AI or whatnot, right? Do you understand those trends and see you can leverage them somehow? So these are the things you think through. There is no one straightforward answer, but ultimately, at the time of your petition, you let your evidence do the talking. So finally, right, in terms of your prep, understand that each person's journey is different. There's no shortcuts. Most people like, oh, that person have done ABC. I'll just copy ABC. I'll get it. No, there is nothing of a shortcuts in that way. There's something called final merit determination. Your lawyer has to write about you as well, right? So each person's journey is different. You expand your narrative in a way that you represent yourself as unique in your domain and differentiate it. Write down all your work. Don't think about significance of it from the time you graduated undergrad till now. Every little volunteer work, detailed project you've done, sit down, write it down so that you think through a lot more. And you can start with your strengths. For example, I had like 9 patents at the time of filing. People say, I don't have patents. Can I still apply? Like, no, that's not the only thing you need to care about. patterns on your strength, you've never done it, that's okay. You can start somewhere that you're strong with and build on it. And um, one way that most EB1A achievers, if you talk to, almost everybody would say nothing comes for free, not in terms of cost, but in terms of your value you add. And a lot of times you don't question, hey, like I'll do something for you. Can you do this for me? Just go out and add value to others. Like ask, how can I help? And you find enough people, enough like-minded people, and say like, hey, let's do this together. And there you go, you have your evidence. And it comes down to your understanding of that, understanding your impact, understanding your domain, and positioning yourself as an expert as you go, as you build your profile, and working with your lawyer towards translating that. That's an important last step, translating your impact, your narrative into your petition, and that's something you need to learn to work with. So I did speak a lot, but yeah. So we'll go through questions now.
Awesome. Thank you, Sunku, for those actionable strategies. I know there are people who have come here repeatedly. I've seen that, and kudos to you because you're taking an iterative approach. You come to one talk, you hear somebody say something, and that sparks a trail of inspiration, and you're like, okay, let me try this. So it's going to be trial and error, and you got to keep doing it. We're going to go into live Q&A right now. Here's how it's going to work. Each person gets one question. So please don't sandwich questions in that, oh, 1A, 1B. No, just one. And please raise your hands right now. You can click the raise hand button, and we are going to go through these questions one after the other, and we're going to take as many as we can till the top of the hour. So please remember, one question per person so that we respect each other's time. Humagni, go for it.
Hey, really nice initiative here. I just wanted to know how we can, be able to get these references. So one important part of EB1 is also getting reference letters from people who are specializing in your field. There are people like who you may have directly worked with, but I'm focusing on the part where you want recommendations from people who you have not necessarily worked with. Like, do you have experience regarding that, like how to reach out to like external people and get their recommendation?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, and that's something as an exercise that I hope you practice along the way, not just a final day that you want a letter in. The idea here is that like you reach out in the perspective of how can you help them, and if your work speak for itself, sometimes like other people reach out to you, which is okay, which is like maybe makes it your life easier. The reality is like if you identify a set of folks as experts in your domain, you reaching out to them, figuring out how you can help volunteer or work with them, right? So that will provide a perspective where they'll be open to kind of provide a letter, if not for anything, which is, it's a letter is a simple thing, but then they need to know your work or like who you are as a person before they give that, right? So in my experience, that's something I've done, reaching out to them, asking like, how can I help them? And that in turn leading to either doing some work together or helping them in a way that they can give me a recommendation letter.
Awesome. Would you be open to give recommendations if in the AI field? Like, just curious.
Yeah, so it based on my expertise and perspective, if it aligns with that, yeah, I'm open to
Awesome.
that. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, Rajat, go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Aditi. Thanks, Sunku. I have one question on critical role. Um, I reached out to my manager to get the letter of recommendation on my critical role. He agreed to that. But yesterday, our HR said no. We cannot issue any letter of recommendation. We cannot recommend you. We can't say you are a critical in this company. So I work at a German insurance company, Allianz, as a cybersecurity expert. So what are the other options I have um, other than letter of recommendation? My performance form for 2023, it's very good. I got bonus 2 times that I can show. What are the other options do you think?
Yeah, so what I've observed, I can tell you, right? So the criticality of the projects that you're working in, like what is their significance? If that's something you can put in, so that's something you can leverage. And the nature of reviews or impact, if you instead of calling it just as a critical, right? Like your impact at work and your impact your projects have at work to your customers. So if you can expand your narrative in those lines, then that's something you can explore and work with your management team.
But they are not going to provide any letters other than employer verification letters. So do we need any letter, or I can get any email, or no letters from peer, colleagues, anything not allowed within this company?
Got it. So it's a good question to an attorney, but in general, if you want to talk about it, at least in the final minutes, you can talk about your work translating to your helping the customers. They can leverage what is published publicly by your company and figure out like how you can fit that into the narrative.
Oh,
But
last question.
it's going to be
Yeah, I know
tricky.
it's
Yeah.
only 1 minute, but what we do if our customers are internal customers? For me, my customers are underwriters.
Rajat,
For sure.
we will move on.
Okay.
It seems like we are getting into the
Thanks,
nuances.
Aditi. No problem.
Yeah, so but feel free to reach out to Sunku and get on a call with him. Sunku, did you disappear? Are you still there? Okay,
Thank
good.
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
Srijita, go for it.
Sure. Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for hosting this. So my question is, what is the significance of the higher education further than like an undergraduate, and does like things like certifications qualify for something as like a master's or a PhD? Of course, it's not the same, but does it hold any significance?
Yeah, if you look at overall petition, right? So if you sure, if you have that master's or PhD, that those degrees are helpful. But then in reality, the significance of your work, like entire body of work uh, across your career, can speak for itself in when you're filing in a petition. So it's not essential that you have to show your master's. That's first part. The second part to your question, certifications. Um, what I've seen, sure, like it's more to say that you have certain expertise, but if it I haven't seen it translated directly to one form or other. I mean, if it helped you to accomplish certain things to your original contribution, great. That's one way you can expand the narrative. The other side of it is like if it helped you perform certain critical functions in your company, that can go under critical role. So there is no equivalent that hey, you've done a certification, so it's something incredible. So you have to fit it into the rest of the narratives that you're working on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, Amiri.
Hi, Aditi and Sunku. Thank you so much. The session's been really helpful. And either one of you can answer my question. But my question is that I don't know if you've heard of Simon Shetty's Smart Green Card program. I want to know if that's legit or that can be trusted. I know he charges a hefty fee, but then he helps you gather and create evidences to meet the criteria. So what's your thought on that?
I'll take this question because it's my platform here. This is not a review platform. I cannot speak for anybody. And this is a question best asked in another format. So I really don't know. I cannot speak to anybody else's expertise.
No worries. Thank you.
Yeah.
With Aditi on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that you want to ask, Aneri, that could advance your petition?
I'm a project manager. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of project managers being qualified for EB1A. So I'm curious to know about that.
So if you're looking for specific case studies, that's like you have to go search. In reality, however, like if you look at SOC codes, right? So IT project management is one of the codes, and sometimes that product managers also need to go align with that SOC code in terms of filing. So yeah, it's definitely possible. I've seen people going with that title or SOC code per se and say they got an EB1A.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Also, there is an event coming up very soon with product managers. Naimisha Murthy is a part of our Slack community. I don't know how many of y'all are a part of it. If you join and you look up Naimisha Murthy, she's a product manager with a niche in DEI, and she recently got her EB1, and she is doing a panel with other product managers coming up on April 13th. So you'll see that being shared on LinkedIn very soon. So if that's helpful, you can absolutely.
Thank you for dropping the link.
Awesome. Lavina, go for it.
Hi, thank you for the session. My question is around the open source. Ranganath, you have mentioned you have open source leadership awards and the 9 divisional board awards. I'm curious about what are they and how you go for it, and is it something the open source contribution as a engineer, as a developer, how can we do that? I am an open source contributor. What kind of work counts there? Yeah.
No, kudos to you, by the way, contributing to open source. The reality with respect to evidence, right? So there some of the work, there are different perspectives, what can be strong, what is not strong. However, some of the work that you would do based on the community, based on the adoption of the software by various companies or in the industry broadly, so you can figure out like different roles, right? Technical advisory, you can be a reviewer or a committer. In my case, I've been a maintainer and also got nominated and got an award for a leadership role in one of the communities. So it's in your best interest to see like, hey, if you can be part of a steering committee with a strong bylaws, that's one like membership criteria. If you can be committer or maintainer, those are certain elected roles as well. At the same time, if you contributed significantly for that open source software that's been adopted across the industry, that's another one. I've seen people who were leading in special roles to ensure the software gets adopted or gets launched or whatnot. And that's again, original contributions to the field. So based on your work, you can work through to see how it maps to different criteria, what's the impact, and you can work with your attorney to build that narrative.
Can you talk a little bit about the divisional awards?
Oh, those were based on my company, within my company, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome. A. Vijay Lakshmi.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you so much, Sunku, for all your insights, and thanks, Aditi, for hosting this. I have a quick question regarding, I have two set of paths going on. As I mentioned, I am an engineering program manager and currently going to top 10 Fortune companies right now. And next career path is I do own a AI-based startup. So I have two ventures going on right now. So should I show both of them in my profile? I'm working towards building my profile, or should I take only one and leverage that? So from your insight, I'm just asking.
Yeah, it's a matter of how can you build your narrative and petition towards you being the domain expert, right? So all it's like you're building a story, and you're giving a detailed narrative towards the story of your life, your career, your impact, and aspects of your startup. How do they help fit in that whole narrative? Could be leveraged. And if you don't want to stay startup, if you want to narrate contributions to the field through the set of things you have done, that's another way to narrate as well. So you don't have to go like the way most company folks think about, like product manager, business people think about. But if you put the lens of, okay, what is significant to your domain, and how are you doing set of activities significant to your domain, either to startup, nonprofit, to a company, whatever the case might be. And
but we can simulate it and show it in the profile.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
So you build that narrative, you build that story, then it becomes easier to consume.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Thank you for the insight.
Yeah, sure.
Also for Vijay, I've put, and somebody else, is it Aneri who asked me like who the question about product managers? I've put the link in the chat with Naimisha. Naimisha has a story very similar to yours. So she is a VP of product, but she herself built a large community for women called Products by Women. Also had a full business in Canada called Full Ritual. And all of them, don't quote me on this, but she found a way to include that in what Sunku is saying in a narrative. So you need to find that plot line and see if it fits. If it doesn't, it's noise.
Okay, got it. For sure. Yeah, I clicked the link. I will check it out. The
Awesome.
details.
Perfect. Prakhar, go for it.
Hey guys, great talk. I just wanted to pick your brain on like what's the difference between an EB1, EB2, and O1, mainly in terms of like approval difficulty as well as like significance for a green card application?
Yeah, there's a lot to it. So there's a different, I mean, so the nuances in criteria and the bar towards which, O1 or EB1 gets, adjudicated. Now, these are the things that like differ, but it comes down to your contributions, your evidence, and your significance in each of these to see, hey, how much of it is aligned with saying you're a domain expert for each of these. For EB1A, it's more as you're filing towards being an immigrant in this country for a green card purposes. For O1, right, you have a right to work essentially, but it doesn't mean that you get a green card just because you have O1. So to that end, each have its own set of purposes. Now, what matters is like what stage in your career or your visa situation you're in, and how strong is your evidence, and what can you work with.
Okay, thanks.
Sunku, do you also want to talk about like what's the difference between EB1 O1 and EB2 NIW in terms of like permanent residency, temporary residency?
Yeah, I don't know much about NIW as per, right? So I haven't spent a lot of time there. Maybe you can help there. From an O1 perspective, right? So you can apply anytime, and you have a permit, essentially a work permit that you can work with as part, like having that extraordinary capability that you have that visa with, and that way you're not in that H1B kind of lottery cycle, but you have enough evidence to go for it. From an EB1 perspective, you get something called like a priority date, right? So assuming you have a work permit, a work visa to work in this country, you can file EB1, or you can file EB1 from outside of the USA as well, saying that you are an extraordinary in your domain of expertise, and you're seeking that permanent residency in the country of USA, and you're working towards a green card, which is what EB1 helps you get there. In terms of NIW, maybe Aditi, you can add in like what's the specialty about it.
Yeah, so NIW again, the new immigration is just gonna immigrate and find every possible way to make you pay more, both in terms of time and money. Previously, in like before, like Sunku's generation and before, it was come to the US on an F1, get an H1B, first try, second try, third try, you're going to get it, and then file for an EB2 and then get your green card or wait in that 135-year line. But right now, H1B is becoming a problem to get. So that's why the new strategy is come on F1. If you don't get an H1B, get an O1 picked, right? And then after that, get your priority date locked in, independent of your employer through EB2 NIW, and then build your EB1. So that's the user flow of the new Indian immigrant. So look up EB2 NIW. Yeah.
You got it right. Yeah.
Cool.
NIW stands for National Interest Waiver, in case you're wondering. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Karthik Kashyap, go for it.
Hello. So thanks for the insightful discussion. And my question is from a perspective of a current PhD student in STEM field. So I want to ask, like, right now I have some papers already published in the journals, and I'm planning to do it more. So it is divided in two parts. First, like how many papers should I publish, or should I focus on publishing more papers, or should I focus on quality to build my profile for the EB1A category? And the second part is I have tried reaching out to various editors in the journals which I have published to get me some reviewership opportunities. So I'm waiting for those, or should I look for some other opportunities as well in some other places, or like what can I do to fulfill the criteria of judgment being a PhD student right now? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll start with the second part, and even Aditi is expert here as well, given she has a PhD. So second part, I said actually as a student who's pursuing PhD, you can have an upper hand here with respect to if you can figure out how to build enough network with professors or people of expertise in your domain. It's a matter of you reaching out to them and asking for being a reviewer, right? So there are pockets of people who are conducting these conferences, you're running these journals and whatnot, and you being an expert, like assuming you have certain set of body of work that you can claim to be someone who has done, who know the domain or who know being an expert. So you can reach out to them and ask like, hey, this is my portfolio. Can I be a reviewer? Can I help you guys out? And it's the same thing I've done, like reach out to TPC members, right? So as a someone who's still pursuing PhD who has that background, it's you can work through a network of professors or others, candidates or PhDs pursuants in your domain to see what the opportunities are and how you can get judging opportunities. That's one part, right? So the second part, the first part of your question, there is around how many, right? So quality versus quantity. So that's a age-old question, like how many do I need to do? How much is good enough? A good qualitative evidence, like a journals, like high impact factor, high index journals, like where even if you have a handful, and you can claim how significant of your work it is to have your work published in that, that's very huge. No, don't discount that. At the same time, if you don't think you're there, but you can still continue to do different journals in as a part of your career. Don't think like, oh, I'll do 5 here. Maybe when I got it, like I'm done. And not that perspective, right? So it's part of your journey. It's part of your professional work, academic work. If you take it that way, it becomes easier for you to keep contributing to it. Work with your lawyer to a narrative where explain the significance and file for EB1A. So it's at the time of, in my case, at the time of filing, I had like about 3 or 4 IEEE Explore papers that I can point to. I had other stuff as well, but it's not that I had a lot. So don't think that, numbers matter more than quality, right? So quality also matters as well.
Okay. So regarding that reviewer part, I have so basically
I
I
think we
have
can
some.
have a follow-up, Karthik, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Yeah,
Running out of
Okay.
time.
Okay.
yeah,
Sure.
you
But
can
yeah, thank
just
you.
look
Reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Mamata Jadhav and Mugala. Mamata, go for it.
Yeah, hi Aditi and Raghunath. Thank you for the session first. As I mentioned you, I am a recent PhD graduate from India and I have moved here to US on H4 as my husband is working here for a year or so. So my question here is, so I'm on H4 now. So what is my path uh, to get into EB1A? So yeah, whether I should get into a J1 or F1 or I keep trying for H1B because like H4 EAD is gonna take some time with me. So what would be your suggestion for me to lay my path to EB1? To be a quick review on what I do, I did work as a thesis supervisor for freelancing in India. Along with that, I work as a research consultant for a startup where my publication profile will be moving on with that. Okay. Now, what would be my path to EB1A? What would be your
There
suggestion,
is a
please? Thank
lot to unpack there, right? In that sense, like what visa do you go for? The reality for EB1, at least from that perspective, right? EB1, it's not that you need a particular visa, right? It's more around filing a petition saying you're expert in certain domain as evident in certain set of evidences or the nature of work you've done. So it seems like you have a body of work you've already done. Like if you, regardless of visa, the idea of visa is like how do you work here and how do you get paid? And if you don't mind not getting paid and if you continue to contribute to your field, you can definitely leverage all of that work towards filing your EB1A petition. But that's one half of it. Like you don't need a visa basically to continue to work towards EB1A if you don't mind getting paid. The second part, which visa, like in a H1B, H4 EAD, you know for a fact you'll get it, versus H1B, you don't know whether you get picked up in a lottery. So there's no comparison. Right? H4 EAD is obvious in that sense. But then the reality is like, do you want to work with it? Do you want to study with F1 visa? So there are these personal considerations you have to think through to see what helps you in your domain. But for me, B1A perspective, you can be independent of any of these and you continue to work in various capacities to volunteer and build your profile.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
So Jadhav, go for it.
Hey, Sunku, hi, Sudhi. So coming to the domain expert, right? Sunku. So I'm a like typical software engineer working on backend application development, code writing with Java. So how can I show myself as critical role, or any of like link it to a domain expert in this case?
Yeah, the reality is that's how I started. Typical software engineer. Nothing special about like, my education or anything. It's just, usual career path, right? So now it's the one aspect is, hey, what can I show based on what I have versus what do I need to work on towards what I need to have, right? So there are two aspects there, and that's where you need to see, like I said in the talk, right? Like you have to sit down, write through impact of every project, everything you have done, and see can you map it to a set of criteria. Now, if you think it doesn't meet the standards that you think you want to go for, so you have to go out and figure out what else you can do outside in your domain. You said DevOps, you said something tools and whatnot in that sense. So there are a bunch of things going on in the open source world or broadly in the domain, various companies that are coming together, figuring out what's next in those domains, right? So you going out, figuring out how to volunteer, writing certain things in there, right? Not that you need patents or publications, but outside of that, can you start? That's the first step, doing something simple in helping out others in that domain, and that leads you to more opportunities.
Got it. And is it like only one project is enough, which is like quantify, like quality project as showcase?
Yeah, if you can get a Nobel Prize for that, yeah, it's more than enough. But so that, like I said, that's quality versus quantity. So if you can meet, I mean, I'm not being sarcastic, right? But to be real with you, if you can meet a particular domain, a criteria in that domain, saying that this has significant accomplishment or impact, maybe that one is enough. And that's where you have to work through to see what is significant in your domain, and that gives you that sense of confidence.
Okay. No, I was talking about the critical role perspective. If I can show only one project in a distinct organization, because I was working as a contractor.
Yeah,
Where
I'll quickly talk this and then we can go next. So if you don't mind. So I think a critical role, it depends on your nature of work, right? So it's not about one project or anything. It's more what is the impact of the things that you're doing. You might be doing small things, big things, right? One major project and then you're coaching others or whatnot, right? So it's overall impact that you can convey becomes the important thing in the letters.
Sure.
All right. We have 2 more minutes and we have 3 hands. Let's combine Prashant. Man, you're making our lives harder. Don't raise your hand now. Just ask Sunku later on. We for Frincy, Nitin, and Prashant, we may not have time for your question. So Mugala, go for your question, and then the rest. I have dropped Sunku's LinkedIn. You can reach out to him. All right, Mugala, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Aditi. So Sungu, I've seen, no, it's coming. My question is coming from the patent side of your slide deck, and I do have 2 patents that are pending, which I just filed. So I have to probably wait like 3 years to get them approved or things like that. So would that still add value to my petition?
It should. When I filed, like I had 9 pending. None of them were granted. Now I have 3 granted, but at the time it was all pending. However, I did get a letter from our like patent department, head of patent department, to say like what is the significance of those patents and how can they be used. Not that they were being used. How can they be used for the from a company's perspective? And most of it was boilerplate kind of letter, but there were some impactful statements in there around why some of these are significant for the company in general, and that kind of ended up being an evidence for my case.
Okay. An additional is, and when you're talking about the salary part, you did mention 2 websites for you to go check out and see what percentile that you fall in. What are those 2 websites that you mentioned?
One other thing I know is ownitonline.org. The second one is, I think, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. They have something that you can look at.
You're right on top of the hour. So Mugala and Frincy, I know you have questions, but just to be respectful of Sunku's time, I'm going to lower your hand. Absolutely reach out to Sunku through the Slack community. He's also available on LinkedIn. Last, Ruchira, again, we may not have time, but Sunku, last piece of advice for folks who made time to forward their petition. What would you leave them with?
Yeah, it persistence, like I said, right, persistence pays off to the end that you constantly thinking through what kind of work you can do, what kind of narrative you can build based on the work you would be doing, and you fine tune your narrative towards the impact in your domain, and that can go a long way towards the entire process, like narrative and impact, and work through everything that you got around these two things, assuming that you know what the evidence that you're working towards, right? So you have to understand what the evidence look like for different criteria. Assuming that you have that, you work through your impact and narrative, and you can set yourself apart with that. And appreciate Aditi for hosting me.
Of
It's been a
course.
good
Listen,
session.
and I want to give it up to all the 42 people who stuck around. This is not easy. This is going to be a second job. You're going to feel infuriated that why am I supposed to be doing all this work when my French colleague is not? It's going to forward your career. And you're working to reduce the 135-year wait time to 5 or 7 years. So this is worth it. And I hope that you keep persisting and you follow Sunku's advice. And he's, again, available on the Slack community and LinkedIn as well. And if you please leave a testimonial for Sunku, you're going to get an email from TopMate for that. But thank you so much, Sunku, and congratulations, everybody, for taking one step toward the big goal.
Awesome.
Take care.
Talking to
Thank you, Aditi.
Bye.
Sunku, thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.